Quote Retreat by Sandor. One quote, one reflection, one thought that could bring a moment of light and energy to your day. Join me as we take a look at today's quote. The quote is by Harry S Truman, born 1884, died 1972. It reads, "It is amazing what you can achieve if you do not care who gets the credit." Let's take a moment together to explore the messages within this quote. Leadership and legacy, we often think they go hand in hand, but what if the secret to achieving greatness is letting go of recognition entirely? Today, we're exploring a fascinating quote from Harry S Truman that challenges everything we think we know about success.
That's such an intriguing perspective, especially coming from someone who held the highest office during one of America's most challenging periods. What was the quote exactly?
He said, "It is amazing what you can achieve if you do not care who gets the credit." And you know what's fascinating? This wasn't just a nice saying. This philosophy guided him through decisions that shaped the modern world.
Well, that's particularly striking when you consider the circumstances of his presidency. He wasn't even fully briefed on major issues like the Manhattan Project when he suddenly became president in 1945.
Exactly. And here's what makes this so remarkable. Despite being thrust into this role with minimal preparation, he had to make some of the most consequential decisions in human history. The atomic bombs, the Marshall Plan, the creation of NATO. These weren't about personal glory, they were about results.
The Marshall Plan is such a perfect example of this philosophy in action, isn't it? He could have named it the Truman Plan, but instead, it carried his Secretary of State's name.
And you know what's interesting about that? The Marshall Plan ended up being one of the most successful foreign policy initiatives in American history, distributing over $13 billion in aid to rebuild Europe. That's equivalent to about $150 billion today.
Looking at his background makes this even more remarkable. Here was someone who failed in business, worked as a bank clerk, and came from modest beginnings in Missouri. How did he develop such a selfless leadership style?
Well, I think his early setbacks shaped this philosophy. When you've experienced failure, you learn that ego can be a barrier to success. But here's what's fascinating. During his presidency, he integrated the armed forces, established the CIA, and helped create the United Nations, all while focusing on results rather than recognition.
That's such a contrast to today's leadership culture, isn't it? In our era of personal branding and social media influence, this approach seems almost revolutionary.
Right. And here's a mind-blowing statistic. Studies show that companies with leaders who share credit and promote team success are 1.3 times more likely to have better financial performance. Truman was onto something that modern research is just now validating.
So, how do you think this philosophy could be applied in today's world?
Well, think about major global challenges like climate change or artificial intelligence development. These issues require unprecedented international cooperation. When leaders or countries get too focused on who gets credit, progress stalls. But when they focus on results like the International Space Station project, amazing things happen.
That's such an interesting parallel. The space station involved 15 nations setting aside individual glory for a greater achievement.
And here's what's really powerful about Truman's approach. It's not just about humility, it's about effectiveness. When you remove ego from the equation, collaboration becomes easier, innovation flows more freely, and bigger things become possible.
You know, that reminds me of some recent research showing that teams who focus on collective achievement rather than individual recognition are 23% more productive.
That's fascinating data, and it perfectly illustrates why this message might be more relevant now than ever. In our increasingly interconnected world, the biggest challenges and opportunities require collaboration across borders, cultures, and organizations.
Looking at Truman's legacy, it's almost ironic that by not caring about credit, he ended up creating such a lasting impact on history.
You know what's remarkable about that? When Truman left office in 1953, his approval rating was just 22%. But historians now consistently rank him among the top 10 presidents because they can see the long-term impact of his decisions.
That drives home the point about focusing on results rather than recognition, doesn't it?
Exactly. And here's the key takeaway for modern leaders. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is step back and let others shine. Whether you're running a company, leading a team, or working on a community project, focusing on the mission rather than the credit can unlock extraordinary possibilities.
That's such a powerful message to end on. Sometimes the path to greatest achievement is paved with humility.
And maybe that's Truman's most enduring legacy, showing us that true leadership isn't about who gets the credit, it's about what gets accomplished. In today's world of instant gratification and personal branding, that might be exactly the message we need to hear. With that, we conclude this exciting episode. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd appreciate a like and a comment. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you. Your support truly helps this channel grow. See you again tomorrow. Yours, Sandor.